Lang. How are you, sir?
Good morning, Chris. And you want anybody behind the mic to be making a lot of money because you're going to bootstrap that.
Yes. You're a labor negotiator.
If he gets 363, he wants 365. It's perfect.
Right. No, it really it's great for all of us if he makes great for everybody with the taxpayers because that's the thing. It's a huge taxpayer subsidized.
I like GBH. I think they do great work. I
so
like
do
their
I.
show in the afternoon. I also like Jim's show. I took Emily Rooney's show at night. And I think that, on-air talent, as you know, I mean, we're in this studio high above Fairhaven.
Right.
On-air talent is paid according to the market, really, so it's interesting. But the reason that's a story, I think, is because GBH gets taxpayer money.
Yeah, that's the only reason it's a story. Yeah. No, I like Channel 2. I like Channel 2 quite a bit. We have I love This Old House. In fact, one of the gentlemen from This Old House lives here in Fairhaven.
It's funny because that with a lack of real quality network shows on, you now tend to go down to Channel 2 and see what's on. And I found a lot of shows I didn't even know existed. This Antique Roadshow I'll watch on a regular basis. Then I'm watching the Mecum car auctions on some high number, sitting there watching them roll out, guys pushing cars out and a bidding as if they're selling tobacco bales. It's
I know exactly what you were talking about because I was watching it the other day.
Oh, it's great stuff.
Yeah.
But the fellows out at Big Wheels, have their own collection of beautiful cars, and I know every once in a while they'll be involved in that. But there's a lot on TV now. When we were kids, there were 3 stations, and it was off by 11 o'clock. And if you didn't like what was on, you can turn on the radio.
Right. Yeah. Or read a book. I remember when cable television first started coming out. It was here in the city, but I lived out in Freetown, way out, almost in Rochester. And we said, Dad, are we going to get cable television? He said, I'm going to pay for television? You kids watch too much television to begin with. But it wasn't long.
Oh, no, it's if you think about the economics of entertainment now and the fact, movie theaters obviously backed off as far as their importance. TV is backed way off. All these different streaming lines have become dominant in essence if you add them all together. And now the other day I saw Facebook is talking about spending $1 billion+ on developing new content and streaming it. So it's a completely new age. And then I invite everyone to look around them, and you'll see a 3 or 4 or 5-year-old kid with a smartphone running it like a computer, and you're sitting there saying, "How did you turn that thing on?
Right.
Could you fix mine for me, please?"
Right.
Young. What grade are you in? I'm in preschool, and they run these things.
Right.
So the human race is wired much differently, I think, than we were.
Yesterday we had Aaron Birkin when I was filling in for Ken. Ken wasn't in yesterday. Aaron's a selectman in Lakeville. He cut the cable a while ago. He has the internet at his house, so he has Netflix and one of these other things. He's getting an antenna, but he hasn't had cable in years, and he has young kids. And his daughter, she's not able to write yet. She can't type. But she knows how to use a voice-activated program on the tablet to find the TV shows that she wants to watch. It's amazing.
We need, there's certain things we need to watch out for. One is this whole idea of artificial intelligence. Eventually, artificial intelligence will be asking us about, the history of the world. I mean, it's kind of funny. It's scary what's happening right now. But I want to assure everyone out there, we are not robots. These are real people.
These are real people for now.
Yeah.
For now.
For today.
So Scott, I thought we'd go over a couple of things. You're going to be here for a little while. Why don't we do this? We'll just go back and forth here a little bit in the remaining few minutes of the hour. When we come in the next hour, let's talk a little bit about the 4th of July. Let's talk about why it's important in the next hour when we come back from the news. And then we'll go over some of the local stuff and some of the things that are going on and your perspective on it. But I do want to get your perspective on Independence Day. And I also want to talk to you about your political party, your perspective on what's going on with the Democrat Party and what's going on here in the country. But we only have a few minutes left until we go to the news. It is amazing, though, how much things have changed entertainment-wise. Almost going back, though, because I have a cottage. We don't have cable. I have rabbit ears down there. And it's amazing. You can pick up like 60 stations with antennas now. So
where do you get your bill one day for that? But I still have my antenna on my house. I won't take it down. I think eventually, it's all going to come full circle.
Right.
And you'll be able to pick up some things by airway.
60 stations you can pick up because a lot of them come out of Freetown. That giant tower that helped me get elected all those years ago. That giant tower in Freetown. That's where they all come out of.
I would also say though, Chris, that you may be picking things up off the water too. I mean, we're what 70 miles away by a crow fly from Long Island. And
well, yeah,
they have some boosters out at the end of the island. So
that's true.
You might pick up some from there.
That's true. That's true as well. I have, of course, it was great growing up here in Wilbur's Point as a kid. I always loved radio because you get all kinds of great stations. You get all the New York stations. Back before you even knew who they were, I'd get Bob Grant, I'd get the Gambling Brothers, all these guys out of New York coming across the water. So we'll do this. We're going to have the news, national and local, and then we'll come back. If you'd like to join us, you can, 508-996-0500. We'll be back in a few minutes, okay? Good morning. Good morning. Thank you for joining us here on Sunday Brunch, WBSM. Great weekend. I think perhaps my favorite holiday. Certainly because it's so uniquely American. Independence Day. I was joking before. I wonder what they do in England. Are they upset about this? This is the beginning of the fall of the British Empire. Our Independence Day. We have in studio former Mayor of New Bedford, Scott Lang. Thanks for joining us, Scott.
Oh, thanks, Chris. And I just want to make note that you had asked me to come in for Memorial Day, Decoration Day, and I really appreciated that very much. And when you mentioned to me, would you like to come in for 4th of July, I thought I could kind of continue to talk about some of the things I had from Memorial Day, and I appreciate the opportunity.
No, I'm glad you could join us. Thank you. What is because you're a guy who's been involved in the political process for so long, which means you're a patriot. I mean, I think people who decide, well, as you pointed out about the late Eddie Johnson, he decided to work within the system as opposed to say the hell with it and I'm going to try to do my own thing. When you work within the system, you naturally agree that America's got a great system. It's fair. You might always not agree with the outcome, but you agree with the process. So I think that people who are involved in politics, regardless of their stance, are uniquely patriotic.
I think that's true. I think, though, that the overwhelming majority, I mean, I can't quantify it, but I would say that it's love of country. Mm-hmm. It's love of family. It's the right to worship in whatever way, as long as it's appropriate, not harmful.
Right.
That binds people together. The freedom of speech, freedom of assembly, all come from the idea that we believe in this country, believe in the system, and count on each other to provide the type of order and appropriateness in a modern society. And it's all based on this framework that was drafted. The original document 241 years ago, but there were all kinds of political theories and papers being written prior to the Declaration itself, but it stated principles as far as people being free and being able to decide their own destiny and coming together, banding together for the common good. And I think that that's what July 4th is all about. The Declaration of Independence is one of the most brilliant and important documents ever written, by man, a modern man.
And so brief, really. That's the genius of it.
Concise, brief, and then the Constitution, the Articles of Confederation, and the Constitution after that follows. The history of it's kind of interesting because the Revolutionary War, the time frame is about an 8-year time frame. So let's assume it starts in the mid 1770s, so mid 75 that, runs to sometime early 1780s, maybe 82, 83. In the meantime, though, we declare our independence, which is July 4th, 1776. The Constitution itself isn't adopted until the fall of 1787.
That's right.
After the Articles of Confederation, and where they realize we don't have a system right now that's going to stand the test of time, so we need to continue to modify it. Now, since that time, our system has certainly stood the test of time, and it's a living, breathing document. people who are constitutional theorists, and they sit there and they say, well, the Ben Franklin didn't mean this. I think in order to understand if Ben Franklin meant it or not, somehow you'd have to get Ben Franklin and interview him today, because it's very difficult with the technological differences that exist, the world becoming a very, very small place very quickly because of time and travel. Our Constitution is a brilliant document, but it is elastic, and it's something that it also appears to be something that will continue to survive and serve us well. So when you look at July 4th in any given year, and now we're 241 years since the original Declaration was signed. When you look at July 4th, we've turned it into a very important summer holiday.
Right.
It's become commercialized like most of our holidays have. But you have to go back to the essence of the holiday itself, which celebrates our freedom, celebrates the idea that we, in fact, are a people who can determine our own destiny within a prescribed type of system. Right. And it's extremely important. It's exhilarating from my perspective, because every day, in different ways, we show that we are, the greatest democracy that's ever been created. Right. I love that about it. So if that makes me a patriot, I think it makes everybody who believes in the United States a patriot. And anyone who believes that you follow the system to reach an appropriate decision is a patriot.
Whatever the decision is that you want to have. In other words, if you want something to change, and I disagree, that's how the process is. Right. It doesn't matter what your end result is, provided that you, generally anyway, that you follow the system.
Well, and you believe in incrementalism, which means that if you believe in these, dramatic changes just like that overnight, the USA is probably not for you.
Right.
And some third banana republic type of system is
swinging either way, to the right or to the left.
Right. On a given basis, very scary. The mob rule in the street is not the United States of America. The United States of America, a good idea or an idea, whether it's good or not, takes a long time to ferment, and then you hopefully have change that leads to some sort of consensus, or at least respected, and that's what this system's all about. Now, the thing that I'd like to kind of draw attention to is, first, without people willing to sacrifice their lives for this ideal, you and I and Matt aren't here today. And so that always goes back to the patriot who, in fact, is a veteran who served our country, who was willing to put their life on the line. So on 4th of July, just like our other major holidays that celebrate this country, you've got to thank the veterans of the United States and their families and what they've done to preserve this system. And whether that starts with the American Revolution and runs all the way, to the War on Terror, it depends perhaps on your perspective. But from my perspective, it's from the first person who decided to protect freedom all the way through to the people serving at this moment. So we want to thank them and think of them. The other thing is that 4th of July is associated with families, because somehow we've got, 4th of July is baseball, apple pie, Chevrolet, right? And it celebrates this unique type of culture that we have, where while it's changed dramatically over the years, we still on a 4th of July afternoon try and get as many people together as possible. Right. Note that Chris McCarthy's not cooking or preparing food, but he will be consuming it.
Absolutely consuming it.
And everybody gets together, and it's a family activity. Then at night, by the largest of usually now charitable contributions and corporations who sponsor the celebration, we have a fireworks display. And the fireworks display, if you're sitting there thinking about it, represents as much Fort Sumner as anything else.
Absolutely.
And Iwo Jima or Normandy or Fallujah, whatever it might be.
Right.
But it is a celebration in color and sound that basically celebrates the idea that we're a very, very great, powerful democracy.
Yes.
So and then those, I don't care what fireworks you've ever seen, if you don't see red, white, and blue in them, you're not looking up in the sky, right?
Right.
So it's a great, unique summer holiday. The thing that I find when I was a kid, from the day you got out of school until 4th of July, I thought the summer went very, very appropriately slow.
Yes.
My problem was beginning July 5th until Labor Day, when you went back to school, I feel like it raced by.
Still does to me.
I want to try and slow that down. I want to try and enjoy the summer a little
Right.
bit and have everybody enjoy the summer and
Yes.
have every day take a moment, be thankful for that we live in the United States, be
Yes.
thankful for the people who came before us, and celebrate that family and that community type of activity. Family when you're having your barbecue, community when you're coming together to celebrate the fireworks. So it's a great day. When we started in 1776, there were about 2.5 million people in America.
Right.
And I'm sure at the time, everyone sat there and said, when did you get here? And have you, are you eating more wheat than you should, whatever it might be. But the fact is now
drinking more rum, perhaps.
Yeah, we have 321 million people thereabout in the U.S. today. And we have big problems, big issues that we're dealing with. But we're all bound by the belief in this system, and we just need to work through it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I think July 4th, 2017 means, to me anyhow.
Yeah, and I will tell you that, Scott, as you know, that we live in a unique part of the country where this is where it all took place. The first naval battle, the Revolutionary War, took place right out there off the coast of Fairhaven and New Bedford. So when you're sitting there watching the fireworks being shot off in the harbor in New Bedford, I mean, it can't be anything more symbolic than the fact that was...
Or authentic, right?
Yeah, the fact that was... And you think about the fact that the British landed here. I mean, they were fighting right over this territory. It's one thing if you live in Nebraska. Nebraska's probably beautiful, but it's totally different than living right here and being able to see. And it's all right here, and so that's very, very unique, and we're lucky that we have that.
We have great history in this area, but also we were at the birth of the idea. We were right in that epicenter. And great patriots throughout New England, throughout the East Coast. But if you go up on County Street, and it's county somewhere right off of Elm, there is a monument to 5 patriots who were the equivalent of New Bedford Minutemen, New Bedford soldiers that were ambushed by the British prior to or just at the onset of the American Revolutionary War.
Right.
And that, not many of our kids know that it all started there. Not many of our kids know that we buried 5 of our own immediately before people even realized that we were in the middle of a revolution.
Right.
And it flowed from there, and we continue, sadly, to bring home young men and women and bury them in the pursuit of freedom. But the fact is that no one has anything on New Bedford when it comes to history or being involved in American history.
No, absolutely.
No city in the country. Absolutely.
And really, and you pointed out too, it is a wonderful community that they get together and pay for these fireworks, because less and less communities are doing it now because of the cost, the liability, but New Bedford keeps on keeping on. They do it. Freetown still does it. There are other communities that do it. Lakeville's Middleborough does it, so Lakeville does a winter one now, sort of for that area. It has nothing to do with the 4th of July, but they have a celebration out there. But Freetown still does, and they have a nice fireworks display. New Bedford still does it, and it's all because people have decided to keep doing it.
The best example I can give is when we realized that the city no longer had the money to put on fireworks, or town governments, companies came to the forefront. And I know, and if I say any names, I'll leave some out, but I'm going to tell you that whether it was Bristol County Savings Bank or Bank 5, or it was Hawthorne Medical or
Compass
South Coast
Bank,
or Compass at one time, or Market Basket,
Right.
people came forward and said fireworks are a important part of
Right.
bringing this community together. So I really appreciate that, benevolence that these different
Absolutely.
corporations have, and individuals as well. The other thing I want to tell you, though, is that the best fireworks display that I ever saw, I actually saw Gig and I in 1976 lived in Washington. We lived up on the hill.
Sure.
And one night I walked over to get her at the end of June, maybe July 1st, maybe the 2nd, so it could have been right now, the 41 years ago, and it's the 200th anniversary of the revolution.
Right.
And in the back of the Capitol, so where the President of the United States is normally inaugurated, in the back of the Capitol, which faces the reflecting pond and faces the mall, I noticed that there is a appears to be a wooden display of Monticello.
Right.
And I say to Gig, you know what's going on? And she says,
That's
well,
Jefferson's mansion.
Mansion. And she says, yeah, what I understand is that the government of France is going to be putting on a fireworks display tonight at 9 o'clock. And so I said, well, we should definitely go. So we go home, and we're literally a 5-minute walk from the Capitol. And we walk back, and it's Gig and I, and say, I'm gonna hold my thumb up and do a crowd estimate.
Right.
Better than Sean Spicer, hopefully, but say that the estimate was 5,000 people.
Okay.
Of a basin that could hold 500,000 people.
Sure.
There were 5,000 people
Wow.
there. So it was like
Nobody.
a private.
Right.
No one knew about it. A big band, and they did a fireworks display for about an hour, which is the most spectacular fireworks display by a company from France who's been doing fireworks for 500 years, right?
Yeah,
we sat there looking at it. It was the greatest fireworks display I've ever seen, and it was in honor of the American patriots that helped spur the French Revolution. It was just a great thing. Now, the other thing I'll tell you is another fireworks display I saw that was great, and this probably makes for great radio because I'll describe the fireworks display. I'm not going to do that, but I am going to tell you this. I saw one in Milwaukee, and I love Milwaukee, right? But I saw one in Milwaukee one time where it was around Summerfest, and this is the difference. So I'm at one in Washington, and people are watching and saying, please, another one, oohs and ahs. In Milwaukee, after about 20 minutes of a spectacular fireworks display, the people became restless, and there had to be 200,000 or 300,000 people, and they're restless, and they're booing. When it's not as high as it should be, or not as vibrant as it should be, they're booing. And as a plane is coming over Lake Michigan to land at Billy Mitchell Airport.
Right.
A small group in the crowd starts yelling, hit the plane, right? That's when I left and said, I'm not going to watch fireworks displays in Milwaukee anymore. The people are bored. They don't appreciate this, So we appreciate fireworks here in New Bedford. We love them.
It's not the impression that the Happy Days gave me on Milwaukee, but we'll be right back. We'll get to pay some bills, and we'll be right back. Talk more about fireworks. Lang, former mayor of New Bedford, here in the studio with us. So we're going to talk. We talked about 4th of July, and I'm going to try to get Scott to come in on some other holidays. I don't know if he's committed for Arbor Day or not, but
Arbor Day I'm booked.
You're booked. Okay, all right. Isn't that the day you go chop a tree down? That's the day, Scott Lang. It's the only holiday you're really against.
Arbor Day we love though. Gig especially was involved heavily in planting trees around the city, and I remember I went up to Ashley School and planted a tree with the kids on Arbor Day, and it reminded me of that Little Rascal episode, where they're planting trees all over, Rascal Land. The kids loved it though, so I think every holiday's got a real purpose. It's when you pick up the almanac and it says, today's brake lining day, and you're going, well, brake lining has a purpose, but I didn't know it was a holiday.
Right. You were mentioning 4th of July and some of the best fireworks. The greatest place I ever saw fireworks, I happened to be finishing up. Well, I had been through basic training, and now I was at the military police school at Fort McClellan, Alabama. Now, I was getting out July 11th. I was going home July 11th. It was July 4th I was there. So you're pretty free at that point. I mean, it's done. The doorway is there. You're going home. And of course, I'd volunteered to go. It wasn't like I was drafted. I liked it. But being on a military installation for 4th of July is absolutely incredible. I mean, it was just absolutely incredible. And of course, you're also full of all kinds of patriotism, because they do a real. I grew up a patriot, obviously, but they do a real patriotic education system with you. You really learn to appreciate America, because you're going to be the guy who might have to go die for this. And so, and there was a time in this country where they were using draftees, and so they really have that down in terms of ingraining patriotism into you, which you have more or less as a volunteer anyway. But being on a military installation was absolutely unbelievable for fireworks. But I still think that this area rivals just about anywhere else. I think the city of New Bedford just does such a fantastic display.
I think that, and then you have Summerfest, the folk festival that takes place around the same time. Then you also have Cape Verdean Independence Day and Recognition day, and as well as the parade now, which is
Right.
basically combined
Yes.
Cape Verdean recognition parade as well as a 4th of July parade. It took place yesterday,
Right.
another great parade. But I do want to say one thing about the Cape Verdean Recognition Scholarship Committee.
Yes,
Marilyn
please.
Gonzalez runs it. They do an unbelievable job. They have year-round raised money. This year they gave out over $40,000 in scholarships to over 40 kids. Every one of those kids will come back and
Right.
help New Bedford, contribute to New Bedford in a
Right.
great way. The families were all there, very proud. Anyone who was there, I was lucky enough to be in attendance, was extremely proud and upbeat about the future of our city, where we're going.
Right.
And it is a it is a cause, a dedication that Marilyn and her committee have committed to. And I would hope that people realize that that's not the only scholarship committee in the city.
No.
Darren Club has a scholarship. Friendly Sons has a scholarship. Right. Different French cotillions have scholarships, and just about every group has a scholarship.
You get into the danger of, when you start to list them, inevitably you're leaving one out.
I've left out the
Right.
majority of them. But the fact is that people are investing in their young people.
Right.
That they believe that our future is tied to the education of our young people, and the young people come to the forefront. The Martha Briggs Foundation society has a scholarship ceremony that I attended the beginning of the month. It is exhilarating. It absolutely gives you a bounce in your step to see young people moving on and getting help from our community. So I would ask everyone, you see an opportunity to contribute to a scholarship, please do it, and congratulations again to all the scholarship committees. I also know on Father's Day, the Prince Henry Society has an unbelievable scholarship program. So this time of year is scholarship time. Put aside money to help these different organizations invest in our future.
We're talking about 4th of July, Independence Day, and the fact that we truthfully became a voluntary society. We agreed to separate from the king. We're going to live together. We're going to make our own rules, but we're all going to get along as best we can, and we're going to follow the rules that we all agree to. And I'm always proud of the Greater New Bedford area because I think it has such an incredibly civic-minded volunteer society. Just you point out all these different groups. No one's getting any money from this, other than the scholarships. No one's getting paid from this. These are all volunteers.
It's all volunteers.
They're all working hard. I really would put Greater New Bedford up against any community in terms of their volunteerism and civic involvement and the amount of work they do. Look at Manny DeBrito, who's now going to be on the Elections Commission. Phil's son-in-law. Right. He's got this A's before J's. So it's get your grades done before you go out and shoot hoops. Basically, that's a volunteer group. You've got all these different groups that are springing up around the city to try to help each other, give people direction, and then all kinds of groups that just want to have fun. These parades, and it doesn't all have to be good deeds. It can just be fun.
No, absolutely. The state of the city, as far as volunteerism, as far as the spirit of the people, is very high.
Yeah.
Administrations come and go on the federal level, the state level, and the local level.
Right.
The people's spirit and their desire to help each other is a constant, and it's very, very encouraging. I mean, it's our community is strong day in, day out, and they rally for different reasons. But I can tell you now, the time and the money that they give of themselves for other, to help others is dramatic and very impressive.
Yeah. And we could do it all day. We just start thinking about the amount of people who dedicate to you. You're always involved with youth sports. There's an amount of stuff that's going on now. But look, it can't all be happy and fun. We do have to do some politics, Scott. I lure you in here on holidays just to then get your perspective on politics. So talk to me a little bit about. Let's go from the big on down. Talk to me a little bit about your Democrat Party, Scott. What your thoughts are? What do you think needs to be done?
Well, I got involved with the Democratic Party formally in 1972, so I've seen highs and lows. I think the Democratic Party right now is at a low ebb, and I think that it's because of lack of leadership. I think it's because of lack of ideas. I think it's the Democratic Party literally lost its way from the standpoint of championing causes for the people that they allegedly represent.
Mm-hmm.
And while you have individuals who still are able to recite why they got involved or why they ran, many of them have become an elected class where they've disassociated themselves from the constituency that they were, professed to want to represent. So if you said to me, well, what's the first and most important thing today that can be done, and I'm not talking about this could be symbolic more than anything else,
mm-hmm.
Because someone said, well, you do this immediately, someone else rises to the top to become the next foil. But
mm-hmm.
I would have I'd call a House caucus. I would have Pelosi resign. I'd have Steny Hoyer resign.
Mm-hmm.
I'd have go through that leadership team and see who has reached the end of their shelf life.
Right.
And not as human beings, but as political leaders, and ask them to step aside. I would have a House caucus to elect a new leadership team. I'd go over to the Senate, and I would do the same thing. Now, I don't think Schumer is as radioactive as Pelosi. Right. But my honest feeling is that Schumer was part of a leadership team going back with Harry Reid. Mm-hmm. That's got to be reexamined and go. In fact, I take this back. I take this back to Daschle. I take this back to Mitchell and Daschle and hold them as responsible as I do Reid. I don't have the same accountability problem with Schumer because I think he kind of came in at this point. But I really believe that we have leaders in the U.S. Senate who will not be as volatile when it comes to people's reaction as to Schumer and the current leadership team. I'd have put it this way: call a Senate caucus, let them talk it out, examine it, and then let them revote and look at where we've been and make a decision. Because the way we've set up our caucuses is based strictly on seniority and heir apparents.
Right.
And the fact of the matter is, when you're not in power, seniority doesn't mean a darn thing.
Right.
Okay. It comes down to ideas, energy, and who's going to move this forward. So no one's entitled to anything. No one's entitled to, who gets the first chair in the barber shop, who gets the best parking spot and the best office.
Right.
Right. Let's re-examine how we're doing this.
But let me ask you, Scott, just why hasn't that happened? Is it because structurally it's impossible, or?
It's because the old guard, and it is not. It would be a misnomer to call it an old boy network, because it's not that. It's an old guard. Has traditionally, these two bodies are controlled by seniority strictly, and top seniority determines, in essence, the day-to-day operation of the caucuses. We need to have it based on ideas, votes, energy, people stepping forward, leadership. Nancy Pelosi was, I read critiques of her performance as Speaker of the House. Mm-hmm. And many of the articles I've read say that she was a superb Speaker of the House, but she's no longer in power.
Right.
And I also, someone I do want to say something about real quickly. A good friend of mine, someone I really cared for, named Carl Wagner, passed away this past week in Washington, D.C. Carl was a very, very interesting political operative. But Carl also was close to Nancy Pelosi, and I remember him telling me one time when she was on the verge of becoming Speaker of the House that he thought that she was more prepared to become Speaker of the House than any congressperson that he had worked with, because of her understanding of the rules, understanding of the issues. But that is 10 years ago, and we have gotten whacked in 3 elections dramatically. Mm-hmm. It's time to move on. If it was a parliamentary system, Nancy Pelosi would have been recalled and resigned a long time ago. So let's move. Now, we don't have a parliamentary system, and that's why we're here for the 4th of July, by golly, right?
Right.
But the fact is, so I don't want to confuse anybody. Right. I'm all for, the American system here. Let's not cross wires. But when I would use that as an analogy, the confidence would not be there, okay? So I think you need...
Well, do you think she'll leave?
Do I think she'll leave? I think she'll be forced to leave. Yeah. I think it's only a matter of time. I think you see the cracks in the foundation occurring. You can't. I think Seth Moulton's an interesting person, and I need to watch his development. A, from afar, but B, for a longer period of time, to declare him the next voice within the Democratic Party. Right, the jury is out on that, especially since the Globe wrote a big story this week that I hadn't realized before, that not too long ago he was telling Nancy Pelosi that the sun rose, with Nancy Pelosi. So I'd like you to be a little bit consistent on this. You can't be a firefly back and forth. But the fact is that Pelosi's got to go. Now the funny thing is, and Jim Phillips will tell you this, I dedicated a press conference when I was mayor, a weekly press conference, to saying Pelosi's got to go back in 2010. When it doesn't work, you got to move on. You got to move on. She's got to move on. Steny Hoyer, who says, well, if she's gone, I should go. No, he's part of the old guard. He's got to go too.
He was there for Watergate.
Steny was a young Democrat when I was really a young Democrat, and he was in his 40s, right? So, I mean, at a certain point, you say, this doesn't work anymore. Keep moving.
We're going to take a quick break, but one of his roommates, I think one of his friends or his roommate, was actually involved in Watergate. He's one of the peripheral figures, involved with some of the girls and like that. We'll take a quick break. We'll come back. Maybe Scott will enlighten us on some of that. In studio, Scott Lang. Scott, you were telling us about your opinions on the Democratic Party. We got to Pelosi. She's got to go. Steny Hoyer's got to go. What about the leadership of the Democratic Party?
So, and the other thing I want to say is, when I say they have to go, they represent a constituency. Their voices shouldn't be stilted in any way. They should be able to go out and continue to represent their constituency. But as leaders of the party, they have to go. I think the DNC, it's interesting. I took a pretty strong position at the end of the year and then to the DNC regarding picking a chairman that understood that Sunday talk shows was not what we were looking for the DNC chair, but we were looking for someone who could raise clean money and from small contributors, and we were looking for someone to draft precinct committee people, precinct captains. We were looking for someone who could be able to help the Senate campaign committee, the House campaign committee, the governor campaign committee recruit candidates on the local level, whether it's school committee or selectmen or mayors, whatever. But we wanted a functional, strategic, more or less mechanic as the DNC chair.
Mm-hmm.
And we elected Tom Perez, who was the former Secretary of Labor. I'm starting to feel that Tom Perez was not the person that we need as DNC chair. I don't think we need another spokesman, and especially a spokesman where we don't have a message. So it doesn't make a lot of sense. We need to begin to build the Democratic Party again, house by house. We need a sign in each house that says precinct captain, Democratic Party precinct captain in neighborhoods. We need a sign that says door knockers that say today's election day, and checkers that say these people voted. So turning out the vote's really important. I think it's very interesting. The 2008 election was, I believe, an election of change. I don't think anyone doubts that.
Right,
it was an
certainly.
Election of change. I think the same people who brought change, many of them voted for change again in Trump, which I think is very interesting.
Yes.
Either by not voting, by not showing up, or by flipping their vote, saying this change from the Obama era didn't work for me, so now I'm going to go again. It's very interesting, though, that many of those people were Democrats and either we lost them or they didn't turn out.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're a party that is speaking to people, speaking to your base, you would think in a presidential election, and especially one that the stakes were so high, would have turned out. The reason they didn't turn out is because the Democratic Party nominated someone, Hillary Clinton, in my opinion, who was unelectable from day one. We basically took the American voter for granted. We took the Democratic Party base for granted.
Right.
And we didn't speak to issues that both Sanders and Trump were talking about. The issues, the ideas are really important. I don't believe that Trump will have a successful presidency because I don't know that he understands how to govern. But the ideas that he talks about are valid ideas. His solutions may not be ones I agree with, But the issues that he's pointed
Right.
out are important issues
Yes.
for the 21st century. The issues that Bernie Sanders pointed out, who, again, I don't know that I agree with all of his solutions, and I don't know Bernie Sanders being an independent within the Senate, who you really can't look at and say, well, that is the meat and potatoes of why the Senate functions. I don't know how well he would have governed either.
Right.
But I know Sanders was a better candidate than Clinton, and I know Trump was a better candidate than Clinton. But I also know that maybe the 12 other Republicans, the 15 other Republicans who ran, may have been better, as good a candidate or better than Trump, and may have governed better. It's the ideas that move things forward. You don't have too many Trumpistas out there. There may be a few, but they're not too many. There are not too many people who say, this is the guy who, when I dream of a leader, there may be some, but not a lot, that I dream of a leader, it's Donald Trump. But the ideas resonate, okay? And the idea is saying we need to change our trade policies.
Yes.
Now, that's an idea. What the solution is another matter. So here's what I would say in a nutshell. We're going through a tough time right now. I'm very optimistic about the country. I think the country will come out of this a lot stronger, as long as people understand we work within this structure.
Right.
You understand we work within a constitutional structure. We understand someone was elected, meaning Donald Trump. We understand that there's a loyal opposition, which should be the Democratic Party. And we should work with the Republicans and try and get things done for the American people. This is not a game. People are not elected officials. When they're born, they are not a class of electeds.
Right.
You're not born and someone looks at you and says, you're going to be a fine senator, okay? That does not work in the United States of America. Some other countries, you're born and they say one day when so-and-so abdicates the throne, you will be the next ruler. That's not the U.S. of A.
Right.
So I think we need to work together. The thing I find most troubling with the party right now, and I know the Republicans did it, but I don't give a damn that the Republicans did it. The Republicans sat on their hands on many issues over an 8-year period and basically said, let them try and get it done, and if they can, great, and if they can't, we're so far apart, let's just coast through and see where it goes. The fact, and they publicly said that. They publicly said, look, we're not going to be contributing on these, ideas. We'll tell people what our idea is, but we're not going to work together to try and find a solution. The Democrats should reach across the aisle and indicate we can help you fix the health care bill. You guys are stalled right now. We were stalled and we rammed through a bill that has a lot of flaws.
Right.
Everybody agrees that health insurance is an important issue. It's a sixth of the economy. It's something that needs to be resolved for the betterment of all of our people. It's very important. I mean, look, there's nothing more important than your health.
Right.
Every day. That's how it all starts out. How do you feel today?
Right.
Not great. Let's talk.
At least I have my health, right? How can we hear that?
At least I have my health. Or how do you feel today? Anyone who knows me or works with me well, how do you feel today? Not so good. And then we go from there, right? But my stuff is minimal stuff. Thank God.
Right.
But the point is this: that we need to fix the health care bill. We can fix it if we come together.
Right.
You're not looking at 50 votes if we come together. If we come together, we're looking at 75 votes, whatever, in the Senate. We can take that House bill and work with it and get something done. We need to do that.
The other thing, too, is that if you refuse to be part of the discussion, you've given away all your power.
If you're not part of the discussion, not part of the solution, and there has to be a solution.
And just from a political standpoint, I mean, if you say there's nothing you can do to get my vote, then that's it. You're out, right? I mean, if I say no matter what you say to me, I will not vote for anything you do. Well, then I'm done. I've taken myself out of the process, right?
I thought the Gang of Five last week that Rand Paul headed up, that all said we won't vote for this bill, but if you keep talking to us, we might. I thought first of all, how disingenuous, number one, but number two, Rand Paul is like a weather vane. He flies around with the wind all the time. He's at the White House. He doesn't represent anyone but himself. He's at the White House. The other 4 people who band with him are sitting there saying, can you give us a call, Rand, and tell us what Trump said?
Right.
Trump doesn't have the votes either. You got to go back into the Senate and find these votes, and that's by working together. Now, every issue that we face right now, the Democrats should be putting out, here is a common sense solution to this problem. So whether it's health care, whether it's immigration, whether it happens to be infrastructure, whether it happens to be tax reform, educational policy, whatever, we should be as Democrats saying, here are our proposals that we think we can work with you on to get things done for the American people. And that's what the Democratic Party lacks right now, leaders who are willing to do that.
Yeah. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back with more from Scott Lang. what a great a longtime baseball fan here in the studio, Scott Lang. Thanks for sticking around, Scott.
Absolutely, Chris.
So we're talking about the national stuff. We're talking about the Democratic Party. We're gonna do like a speed round here. All right.
Yes.
Talking about your thoughts on Donald Trump.
I think that Trump is not. I don't think he's qualified to be president. I think he has the breadth of understanding of the American governmental system to be a successful president. I also think that he has a unpredictable, irrational approach and streak that just calcifies opposition to him. I don't think the Democratic Party should base their platform on getting Trump or having Trump impeached. I think if he violated the law, our system will work.
Right.
In the meantime, the Democratic Party better focus on issues and solutions and move ahead. The issues that Trump campaigned on are Democratic Party issues. Trump's biggest ally could be the Democratic Party when it comes to substance.
Couldn't they take Trump and couldn't they bring Trump along? I mean, in other words, couldn't the Democrats actually become the ruling majority with Trump in some way?
Well, it's funny. Trump is looking for, but in the Senate, yeah, because Trump is looking for solutions. In the House, there's too many, I think, to be able to flip. But in the Senate, I think they can find common ground, and I think they'll find common ground with a president that's looking for issues and understands that there are slogans that he campaigned for. So I think that forget about impeachment. If impeachment's going to happen, it'll happen. It takes a long time. I was in D.C. during, the Nixon Watergate investigation. It takes a long time. But the fact is that there are pressing issues that can't wait, and we have to resolve them. And the Democratic Party is the key to resolving them. And the Democratic Party, if it wants to get people their confidence back, has to be engaged in issues, and that's my biggest complaint.
I also think Donald Trump, as a person who supported Donald Trump because of the issues of trade and bringing back jobs to America and focusing on that type of stuff, I think that Donald Trump would dump the Republicans in a heartbeat if he thought that he could get his trade agenda through what he believes to be a win.
Trump has no ideology. I'm not sure. Trump is vacuous as far as I'm concerned. So the idea, whatever you fill him with on a given day, if it leads to some sort of in his mind, victory, but in the American people's mind, hopefully progress, would be the way to govern during this dysfunctional time. And it seems to me the Democratic Party, has been unwilling to understand that the status quo is dead. The old Democratic Party mantras, the issues may be there, but the solutions aren't. We got to do that. The party has to retool itself completely. And there are a lot of ways to skin a cat, and if it means working with a White House that really has no compass. I mean, you got guys like Bannon, and they're going to, resist this. But the fact is, maybe the resistance will not be the Democratic Party; it'll be the inner circle within the White House. But let's get it moving.
The Democratic Party's got to learn to talk to people like me, and then let's move on. The fishing industry. Your thoughts?
Fishing industry, I still believe that the science is not appropriate. So when I say science, that leads to deciding fishery plans, and it leads to allocations. So until I have confidence in the science and fishermen have confidence in the science, I think that the allocations, we believe, are not appropriate, especially when the fishermen go out and make observations. Fishermen have a PhD, in essence, a practical PhD in ecology. They have a practical PhD in the fishery stock.
Right. And
it seems to me when they go out and they say, they do 5 tows and they end up with X, which is an abundant catch. And then the Bigelow goes out there and does 5 tows and says there's no fish here. It means that the Bigelow is basically pulling a punch, and we know they're pulling a punch because
the Bigelow is the government.
The Bigelow is the government boat. The government boat last year didn't go out. The government boat, they claimed in spring, which is the most important time to go out, they claimed they didn't have enough time to rig it up correctly, and they had a breach with one of their with a system within an engine, so it didn't go out. So
they all got paid anyway, though, right?
Well, I'm sure that, but if it was
unlike
so
fishermen,
important,
if they didn't put the boat in the water, they wouldn't get paid, right?
Fishermen had been taking it on the chin. The Health and Welfare Fund, the pension fund, had been taking it on the chin for a long time. The infrastructure in New Bedford remains strong, but has lost an awful lot of money because of regulations that don't make sense. The thing I think that shows the fallacy, though, is that the government is using stale data most of the time. putting their finger on the scale as far as too many contingencies that cut back more on allocation. And then the last thing, if they're so serious about it, how do you not have the Bigelow ready to go in the fall for its spring trip? How do you end up saying with the Bigelow, we just realized it now, the Bigelow is going to be 3 or 4 months late? The key with fishing is that you go at the same time each year in order to assess the environment at that time.
Right.
So you go 4 or 5 months later, it doesn't matter, okay? You can't replicate what was going on in the spring.
Same way any business does it. You look at what were your sales in July last year and the year before. Scott,
rather than Christmas. I'll say SMAS is a key player in this. SMAS and the professors down there are assessing new ways to check ground fish allocations, and I think we should hopefully see some progress there.
Now, the other booming industry, marijuana. What are your thoughts?
Well, I was against the legalization of small quantities of marijuana to begin with. I don't believe in the idea that somehow it's a little bit legal, but it's not a lot legal. Right. I also think once you legalize it, then you got to think, well, did you just create a bigger demand on the underground illegal economy and the illegal sale of marijuana? So then you have to come up with a legal way to sell marijuana, and I think the way it's happening by using a ballot question on that takes away the ability for government to really regulate this and figure out what's safe and what's not. So right now, the cart is out of the garage on this thing, or out of the barn. It's galloping along. The House wasn't able to get something done yet. If they're going to tax it, and they hope that will dissuade people from buying it, then you have the illegal drug sale again. Right. If you're selling drugs, you got drug stores. Figure out how you're going to allocate an appropriate amount that people can buy, whatever. But it's very, very dangerous. And with the opiate crisis we have now, which by the way is more of a law and order issue than it is a public health safety issue. Public health and safety is the after effect, is the consequence of the law and order issue. If people
I feel like law and order's gone out the window on that.
The only thing that counts is if you're pushing opiates, all right? Whether it be a doctor who's off the reservation or whether it's a drug dealer, and you are then adulterating them and adding, it's powerful enough and scary enough as it is, and then you're putting fentanyl in it. It seems to me that person's got to be charged with either homicide or manslaughter. They got to be picked up. It has to be very, very serious in the way we approach this, because our kids are being poisoned, and we're sitting here acting like, well, somehow it's the victim that we're gonna be dealing with and punish. The victim, we got to figure out how to resolve this. Right. But the fact is, the drug dealers and the big money being made here are the ones that have to be focused on.
You're selling heroin, 25 years in jail. I mean, they go away pretty rapidly, right, Scott? If you say you're going to jail for 25 years.
Well, the guns and heroin right now seem to be illegal guns, by the way. Illegal guns, heroin adulterated with fentanyl or whatever's coming next. I mean, now they say, hey, we've got something even more powerful.
Carfentanyl.
Eventually, you'll look at something and it'll kill you, right? So the idea that these guys are cutting it makes no sense.
Who was doing a pat down, and he breathed some of the stuff in, and he passed out. He
I have no doubt.
Had Narcan.
It's a toxic.
From breathing being in the pig pen, being around the peanuts. He breathes in a little bit of the air around this guy, and he passed. Dangerous.
It's the most toxic substance that are out on the street, and and we're acting like this is a nuisance type of a situation.
Scott, what everyone's been waiting for, your opinion on the state of the city.
State of the city, I think taxes have gone out of control. I think the idea that 85% of the budget is prescribed is absolutely not true. I think whoever pulled that explanation off, it knows that it's not true. The only thing prescribed in the budget, quite honestly, is pension, and even there's a swing. There's a certain variance on what you make in your pension payment. Everything is discretionary. You make decisions. You bond out. Now you got to pay for it. You give raises, you make capital improvements, now you have to pay for it. Every decision is a decision you make. And the fact is, if you don't think about the taxpayers, there's an awful lot that needs to be done in New Bedford. But literally, there is absolutely no unsigned check. It all comes back to the taxpayers. It's not a pool of money that is always replenished. People earn their money. They have their own responsibilities. You can't continuing to raise taxes on the individuals in New Bedford. You will kill the city. And then dangerously, you've put your taxes now out to a private company When this hits the fan, a private company doesn't take a joke. So you've got a situation here where you're losing control of your ability to have people be able to afford to live in the city, and then you'll lose your ability then to sit down and say, how do we resolve this?
In a nutshell, tell us what you mean by a private company for those people who don't understand what you mean.
They sold a tax portfolio, which, the administration sold a tax portfolio, which I was unwilling to do, because you don't want someone from outside the city having control over properties if they haven't paid their taxes.
Debt collectors. They're debt collectors, essentially. Right?
Well, what they do is they front the money, and then now they own the debt.
Right.
And they go ahead and now they collect the debt. So far, I've heard from many people. So far, they've had somewhat of a rational approach, but if this really hits the fan, taxes are too high. People are going to fall behind.
Hey, listen, folks, thanks, Scott Lane, for joining us. Have a wonderful 4th of July. Have a great Independence Day. Think about the guys who are overseas right now and the men and women defending this country, keeping us free. We'll be back next week. Thank you so much.